Hey there, beautiful souls. I'm Colleen Lockoff.
And I'm Meredith Lockoff.
And welcome to Spiritual Sisters with Sass, the podcast where two sisters with a passion for spirituality and a touch of sass come together to explore the exciting world of self-improvement.
That's right, Colleen. We embarked on this incredible journey together, diving into different self-improvement techniques, yoga practices, and a whole array of life experiences.
Yeah, and through it all, we've managed to create lives that are abundant, happy, and constantly evolving. It's been a wild ride, hasn't it, Meredith?
You bet, sis. We've got two very different perspectives on life, but that's what makes this podcast so special. I'm all about diving in head first into life's adventures and embracing every challenge with a bit of sass. While Colleen here, she's got her own unique approach.
Yep, that's me. And I'm all about the yoga, mindfulness, and finding my zen. And together we make the perfect balance.
So whether you're looking for some wisdom, a few laughs, or just some heartfelt stories, you're in the right place. We're here to share our personal experiences and insights with you, all while exploring the wild and diverse world of self-improvement.
So grab your headphones and get ready for a fantastic journey with us. Spiritual Sisters with Sass is here to uplift, inspire, and keep it real.
Thanks for tuning in, lovely listeners. Let's dive in.
Spirit and sass. Here we go. Hey everyone, welcome. Thanks for joining us once again. Today we have Jim Marshall from Septemics. And when I was reading the conversation between the two of us, I am so excited to have you here. It sounds like your book is life-changing and that maybe even this podcast could be. So we would love to welcome you here. And I'd love to start by asking you to tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, I am the discoverer of hitherto unknown natural phenomena, which greatly aid in the understanding of people, from which I created a revolutionary practical philosophic system called Septemics and published it in the book, Septemics, Hierarchies of Human Phenomena.
Hey, tell us more about that.
Well, Septemics is a philosophical science based on the fact that many phenomena related to humans occur in a sequence of 7 levels. Literally, the word septemics means of or pertaining to 7. Septem in Latin is 7. Septemics comprise a collection of scales or sequences, each of which breaks down various human phenomena into a hierarchy of 7 steps. These are naturally occurring. In other words, this is natural law in the same way that the Pythagorean theorem, Newton's 3 laws of motion, the periodic table of elements are natural law. And I spent most of my life verifying that fact redundantly. If you like, I'll tell you how I figured this out because it tells you a lot about what it is.
Yeah, tell us how. Yeah, I was going to say we want to know more about the 7. So tell us. Tell us.
Okay, so the story really begins when I was accepted into engineering school at the age of 16. Now, of course, I thought at that time that I was going to be engineering physical things, like all the other engineers thought, like airfoils, motors, electrons, and so forth. But by the time I had my bachelor's degree, it was clear to me that I wanted to engineer the human psyche because it is the area of greatest unknown and mystery. And more importantly, it is the area in which we as a race are failing miserably. 95% of the problems in industrialized society are because people don't understand people. Don't understand the wife, don't understand the husband, don't understand the mother, don't understand the son, don't understand the boss, et cetera, don't understand somebody who's running for Congress. That's why we routinely, all over the world, elect morons and criminals to run our governments because we don't understand them. To make a long story short, I had a long career as a human development engineer, using engineering tactics, principles, devices, strategies and so forth to bring my clients to higher levels of enlightenment, ethics, responsibility, and so forth. All of my clients improved as a result of our interaction. But incidentally, I started noticing pretty early on that I could predict the outcome of the session. So some guy comes in to me with something he wants to handle. I go to come in and say, I have a drinking problem. Can you help? I say, sure. So we start working on it, see, and he has no idea what I'm thinking, what I'm writing, or how I'm doing what I'm doing. But I would know the outcome of the session with specificity. Now, this happened thousands and thousands of times because what I figured out as the decades rolled by is that the client would be at a specific level on a specific scale that I had previously observed and written down. And as a result of our interaction, he would go up to the next higher level. So because they knew nothing about this, every time this occurred, it verified my hypothesis. So by about 1995, I had simply observed and written down about 32 scales. In other words, actual patterns of human phenomena, that the person is at this level and then he goes to that level. And I would see this all the time. After I would see it in session, I would then go out in the world and I'd see the same thing right in front of my face. And again, people had no idea what I was looking at or what I was thinking, but it was there. So I had this one scale in particular that I had been using for decades, that had 6 levels, that by then I absolutely knew was correct because it always was working. But one day I was pondering a difficult client and I realized that this client was at a level on that scale that I had not previously observed. It took me a long time to figure this out with this client. There was a 7th level. So when I saw the 7th level, I immediately knew where to insert it into the 6th level scale. That was obvious. And as soon as I inserted it, the 6th level scale, now a 7th level scale, manifested mathematically. Now you have to realize I took 26 semesters of math and loved every minute of it. So math is a very real thing to me. It's not abstract.
Yeah.
I see it in nature all the time. But
Numbers
I did not only see it in physical things, but I saw it in human phenomena too. So when I saw this mathematical manifestation, and I'll tell you in a minute what I mean by that, I said, whoa, I found something here. Because whatever this is, it has to be natural law because it has mathematics embedded in it. And anything that has mathematics embedded in it is natural law, like, for example, a Fibonacci sequence. When all these data jumped out at me at the moment where it went to a 7-level scale, it went from being a line, which is what a scale is, to a plane, meaning a whole body of data. So now this scale was not merely a scale, it was a whole body of data in 2 dimensions with all of these interlocking factors that were unequivocally mathematical. So I then thought to myself, I wonder how many of these other scales that I have here are actually 7-level scales that hadn't been developed all the way. Because I wasn't developing anything. I was just helping my clients and making notes.
Right.
So knowing what I was looking for, which is the key here, I then observed all these other scales. I studied them. And in a short period of time, all of these scales went to 7 levels. And when they did, they manifested mathematically. So now I had 32 7-level scales, all of which had mathematics embedded in them. Now, having gone to school for 28 years and being a well-read person, I said to myself, I never saw anything like this before. This looks like a new subject. And then my next thought was, wait a minute, this is so intuitive because it's natural law. This could really help people if I just give it to them. So I'm going to have to write a book. So the first draft of the book was finished in December of 95.
Right.
And I sent it in transcript form to colleagues of mine, all of whom had graduate degrees in a variety of subjects. And they all responded very positively. They had different responses, but distinct positive responses. That was 29 years ago. And I have to tell you, in 29 years, nobody who has ever looked at this material has ever said anything like, I don't get it, doesn't make any sense to me, or anything like that. What they say is, whoa, and their jaw drops. Because, as you suggested before, it's a life-changing body of data. So beginning in December of 95, when I got that feedback from my colleagues, I then spent the next 25 years of my life working on this book. Because you have to realize, first I had to discover the phenomena, done, although I did find 3 more skills. Now, I am a very typical engineer. If you've ever been around engineers, we have a personality type.
Yeah.
1,000 engineering students, and we were all like different versions of the same guy. Well, this guy has blonde hair, but he's just like me, you know. So that's who I am. You know, that's what all the tests that I took showed. The 3 top things for me were 3 types of engineering. So as an engineer, I'm only interested in facts and results. That's it. To engineering, opinions and beliefs are utterly irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to craft something that would work all the time for every person. That took 20 years. So the most time-consuming aspect of this was expressing this in a way that would make sense to the average reader of English.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I literally had to go through this book word by word. How people think about this. And some of the things I spent a lot of time on getting the exact right word, because in order to explain these phenomena, they have to be labeled, right? It's just like, what is the genius of Newton's 3 laws of motion? It's how he articulates it. You read it, it's fairly concise. Yeah, okay, I see that. That's how this is. So when people look at it, who have never seen it before, they open the book, they look at it and say, yeah, I see, this makes sense to me. They get it right away. So I've
You've
been
got
watching
me
people
so
get this.
curious.
What's that?
You've got me so curious. I'm so curious. Tell me about the phenomena.
Okay. So I finally, after, you have to realize, I rewrote the book at least a half a dozen times. Because what would happen was, you know, I had that initial release in 95, and I got feedback from it. So I said, well, this can be improved. So I rewrote it. And then I would release it to my students and my clients and my colleagues, and I would get feedback. And I would write it again. And this was all about making it accessible so that the average person who reads English would get this. So I've been watching people get this for 29 years. So there are these 35 scales which correspond to areas of human phenomena. And if I may, I'd like to tell you what they are, what those areas are.
Please.
Because that tells you exactly what subject matter is covered in the book. And each of these 35 areas has a 7-level scale associated with it. So 24 of these scales are what I call individual scales. They apply primarily to an individual. And 11 of them are group scales, meaning they apply primarily to a group. So these are the individual scales: the scale of basic purposes, the scale of personal influence, the scale of choice, the scale of permeation, the scale of thought, the scale of identity, the scale of evaluation, the scale of motivation, the scale of control, the scale of stopping, the scale of scholarship, the scale of literacy, the scale of human ability, the scale of memory, the scale of spiritual identity, the scale of mental deletion, the scale of aberration, the scale of physical fitness, the scale of justification, the scale of belief, the scale of equanimity, the scale of attack, the scale of conflict, and the scale of reaction. And these are the group scales. The scale of relationships, the scale of life spheres, the scale of government, the scale of civilization, the scale of survival, the scale of management, the scale of exchange, the scale of communication, the scale of allegiance, the scale of sexuality, and the scale of politics. I already know any one of these scales by itself will dramatically change the life of the reader. And let me give you a simple example of how that would work. I mentioned the scale of motivation. One of the most important things to know about anybody is the person's motivation. Why is this person doing this? Right? So you could take the scale of motivation. In other words, I have identified the 6 basic, inescapable motivations of humanity. All the others are subsets of these. If you say, well, what about this? Well, fits into here. So, because it's a menu of 7, it's not that hard to use. You know, sometimes you go to a restaurant, they have like 300 things on the menu. It's like overwhelming. But if you go to In-N-Out Burger, they only have about 6 or 7 things, right? So it's very easy to decide. You're either getting a cheeseburger or a hamburger, you know, with fries or without fries, and that's it. So that's how this is. So this is very user-friendly. So you could take this and you could ask yourself, what is my mother's motivation toward me? What is my father's motivation toward me? What is my boyfriend's motivation toward me? What is my next door neighbor's motivation toward me? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, until you go through everybody in your whole life and everybody you've ever known. This is not hard to get. You know the person, you study the material. Oh, I see, he's level 4. And you have to realize, every time you correctly spot a level, whether it's your level or somebody else's level, you have a realization. So you spot your mother on the scale of motivation, right? And say, now I understand why she can't get along with my father. It's because of boppity 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 bop. It's right here. So this is very enlightening. So you could then take the same scale and reverse the vector and say, what is my uncle's motivation toward me? What is my grandfather's motivation toward me? Rather than my motivation toward them. See, it's the opposite vector. And you get everybody else's motivations toward you. So now you know your motivation toward everybody in your life and their motivations toward you. And every time you spot it, you'll have a realization. So using it as I just described, you could use it 200, 300, 400, 500 different times, because each person, it's a different context, you're going to get a different answer. So every time you have a realization, you say, that's what explained why Joe and I broke up 10 years ago, was because of this. So you are now a brighter person. In other words, your mind is clarified. It's much easier to live when you know your motivation towards someone and you know their motivation toward you. So this guy's dating me. What does he want from me? What is his motivation? See? So I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a couple that's been dating for 3 years and they're talking about getting married. Big step. Wouldn't it be smart to ask, why does this person want to marry me? Isn't that a reasonable question?
Yeah.
I'm not saying to ask the other person. I'm saying open the book. Mm-hmm. Look at the scale of motivation. Because so this guy's been hanging around with this woman, right, in an intimate relationship for 3 years. He knows her pretty well by now, right? So he looks at the scale and he'll say, I see, she's at that level. That's a motivation. So maybe he spots that she wants to marry him because she loves him, which is level 1, the highest motivation of all love. Okay, let's set the date. When he starts analyzing this and thinking about it, he says, now that I think about this, I think she wants to marry me because I drive a Lamborghini, I fly my own Learjet, I have a 60-foot yacht, I live in a $15 million condo and have $8 million in the bank. See, that's a different motivation. That's level 4, money. I'm not saying it's good or it's bad. Mm-hmm. What he does with that, that's up to him. That's not for us to say. So he might look at this and say, okay, she wants to marry me for my money. Okay, that's no big deal. That's no news. Okay. But she's beautiful. She's smart. She's funny. We have a good time together. So I'm going to marry her anyway. See, it's not a problem for him. But that might not happen. Maybe he'll look at it and say, I don't want to marry somebody who wants to marry me for my money. I want to marry someone who loves me for myself, not for my Lamborghini. So he might break up with her. Now, you might think, in that case, he's going to be upset. Oh, I lost my love. That's not what's going to happen. He will be relieved. No, but she's not dumping him. He's saying he's getting rid of her because he doesn't want to marry a gold digger, right? He's going to be relieved. He's going to say, thank God I figured this out before I wound up owing her $15,000 a month in alimony. So this guy is a little smarter now, see? So the next woman he goes to, he's going to be more alert. Maybe he won't tell her he drives a Lamborghini right away, you see? You know, there's a certain type of woman, she meets a guy, she says, what kind of a car do you drive? Guy says, Lamborghini, she says, let's go for a ride, right? If he says a Ford, don't call me, I'll call you. You know. So you see how this works? This is very practical. Now, did you ever notice how many elderly, unattractive men are married to beautiful young women?
Mm-hmm.
There are lots of them. How does this work? You know, through my life, I'd look at this and I'd say, how can this couple be? Doesn't make any sense. Well, think about it this way. Miss gets a diamond ring, a pearl necklace, a mink coat, a Corvette, and a credit card. And the 50 overweight guy gets Miss Texas for a wife. So when she comes to him and says, honey, I want to go to Vegas for the weekend, he says, okay, here's $5,000, have a good time. And when she comes back, he gets rewarded. So see, it works for them. He doesn't care if she's a gold digger. That's how that works. So the important thing is you use this to enhance your life. Now, look, let's say this hypothetical guy we've been talking about owns a car dealership and he's looking for a new salesman. So he's interviewing salesmen, right? So the salesman comes in, and as a result of their discussion, he sees that this is a money-motivated person. Great, hire the guy. That's what you want. This guy gets a commission for every car he sells, and so he's a money-motivated person. He's going to be out there pitching to sell your cars. You see, that's what you want. That might be the same guy who says, I don't want to marry a gold digger. See? So it depends on the context. What is this about? So, for example, I have people that work for me, a housekeeper, a gardener, an auto mechanic. So none of these people are terribly literate. There's a scale of literacy. Now, I'm a very literate person because I went to school for 28 years, but I don't sit down and discuss Spengler or Socrates with these people, right? So it doesn't particularly matter to me. Does the guy do a good job cleaning the house? He does? Great. I'll call you next month, you know? Or my auto mechanic, he's like a genius on cars. He works on racing cars. That's like the holy grail of the auto mechanic, okay? So whatever it is, I have complete trust. Here's what it's doing. He says, okay, come back tomorrow. It's fixed. Pay him whatever he wants. See? Now, this guy, you know, I don't know if he owns a shirt that has buttons on it. Because every time I've ever seen him, he has a t-shirt on, you know? So be buddies with him. He just fixes my car. I pay him the money, we'll go down. So, you know, on the scale of human ability, as an auto mechanic, he is at a very high level. He's at least an expert. I know a lot about cars. I've had about 20 cars, okay? And I've worked on cars. This guy really knows his stuff. So he's at level 3 on the scale of human ability as a mechanic. But maybe in the scale of relationships, he's at a low level. I don't know. Doesn't matter to me. See? So That's what this is about. That's why I got this idea. I have to put this in a book and get it out. Because I have to tell you, people love this. They love it. I mean, they just look around with them everywhere they go. So when they meet somebody, they say, oh, what is this guy? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Level 6 on the scale of attack. Yeah, that explains that. So it's really useful.
Can you tell us the name of your book again?
Sure. It's called Septemics, Hierarchies of Human Phenomena. Now, let me tell you in a general way how this is beneficial to people. I mean, I gave you an allegorical way, but let me tell you just generally. There's 3 ways, and this is very useful to anybody who reads it. I wrote this book to help people. I've had a lifetime of helping people. Even as a kid, I was helping people. Each of these 35 skills provides the user with an infallible way of determining the salutariness or the beneficialness of any group, individual, or activity. If that group, individual, or activity moves persons up these scales, it's beneficial or positive. If it moves them down, it's detrimental or negative. So you see, I'm giving you a yardstick by which to assess human affairs, which is an entirely new thing. More importantly, just what level you or another person is at on any scale is inherently beneficial and enlightening. Because every time you correctly spot the level, you have an epiphany or a realization or an insight. In other words, you get a little smarter as a result of using it. Mm-hmm. One of the ways that you know you found the right level is that you have a realization. So you'll have some guy reading this, right? And he's not thinking, for example, about his mother-in-law. She's not in his mind, right? But he gets down to the scale, level 5 on the scale of control. He says, wait a minute, this is my mother-in-law. This is exactly how she behaves. This explains why she does X, Y, and Z. See, before that, he didn't understand it. Now he does. His relationship with her just improved because he knows what he's dealing with.
Agreed, yeah.
So, I don't know this guy's mother-in-law. How did I get it so exact that he spots it even when he's not thinking about her? You know, like I've said, if I told you, I have an animal that lives with me. It has 4 legs, it has a tail, it has ears up like this, and it has whiskers. See? You can say, well, this guy obviously has a cat, right? Because I described it to you. So that's what happens here. I'm describing it in the book with specificity. So you look at it, you say, oh, it's a cat.
Lynn, you had a question?
Yeah, I was thinking about how actually similar this is to yoga and landmark leadership. One of the things that I talk a lot about is how yoga is science. And this is just like confirming it. So one of the questions that I have, because basically you're not getting into the story of the ego. You're just seeing people as they truly are. It's not good, it's not bad, it just is. Mm-hmm. And when you understand someone, then you know how to move forward with that. So yes. How do you determine someone else's, level in the scale?
Right. Good question. So there's a couple of answers to this. First of all, people tell you their levels.
Okay.
If you just shut up and listen, they'll tell you.
Fair. I say that all the time.
The issue is you have to have the question in your mind. So, for example, let's say you have this guy who bugs you because he's a control freak, right? A control freak. So you look at the scale of control. And, I see, this guy's at level 6 on the scale of control. A control freak is described at that level. See, there are 7 ways of controlling things, and they're in a hierarchy. So this is very much like Sir Isaac Newton famously shined a beam of white light through a prism and got the rainbow. The rainbow is always red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Always. because when the light slows down, it has a lower frequency, and we perceive it at that color because it's at that frequency. So what I did here is I took these 35 areas of human phenomena and shined them through a prism, and you can see the rainbow. So to go back to your question, there's a principle, very old principle in engineering. I actually don't know how old this is. It's got to be at least 100 years old. It might be older than that. And it goes like this: 90% of finding the answer is asking the right question.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Right? So let's say somebody gives me an amplifier to fix, right? So all I know is it's not working. So I have to start going through and, testing things. Okay, let me test all the tubes. Oh, they test fine, let me test the power supply. See, I wasn't thinking about the power supply. Oh, it's the power supply. Using the power supply. Put it in, works perfectly. So you see, until I asked that question, I could not fix it. So this gets you to ask the right question.
Have you ever read that book or heard of that book? I think it's called 2035, and it's a science fiction book about they get an answer from the future. People put into a thing, how do we save the end of the world or something like that? And they get an answer from the future, and the answer is like 346. Like that was it. So now they have to, before the end of the world, find the right question so that they know how the answer applies to stopping the end of the world.
Right.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
remember I told you in 1995, I have these 32 scales, right? The scales were there. I had observed them and written them down, right? Which is what an engineer does. He sees something, he makes a note of it. Okay. So then I realized that is not enough to create a philosophic system. Yes, the scales are useful, but I had to extract all of the information out of these and write it down so you can use it. So each of these 35 areas is an axis against which to evaluate human phenomena. So, if you take a test like the MMPI, famous psychological test, right? So it has axes, right? So how does this guy score this way, this way, this way? So he might be high in this one, low on this one. This is the same thing, has 35 axes. And each one is unique. Each of the 35 scales is unique. So you cannot infer anything from scale A by studying scale B. Nothing. That is good because as a result of that, this spans the spectrum of human experience. Mm-hmm. Now, if you think about those 35 subjects that I read to you, and each of them is broken down into 7 levels, many people have said to me, you covered it all. Mm-hmm. And that is what I have observed. And that is why I can tell you any problem, dilemma, situation, difficulty that any person has that's related to people can successfully be analyzed by one or more of these scales, usually more than one. So let's say you have a problem, right? You have a problem with your mother. Something is not going right, right? Start analyzing her. Where is she on this scale? Where is she on this scale? Where is she on this scale? And every time you spot it, you'll have an insight. That's why she flies off the handle. Or that's why she doesn't get along with my brother. Or what? And so you could analyze her, and I've done this with people, across 35 axes. And by the time you do that, you will understand her better than she just understands herself. Sure. Because I have to tell you, these scales are correct. They are natural law. So several people have said to me, what book is your book like? And having gone to school for 28 years, I have to say, I don't think there's ever been a book like this before. But Each of these scales is expressed in what you could call a table or a spreadsheet that shows all the data relevant to that area of interest. And each of those tables is very similar to the periodic table of elements. Now, before Dmitri Mendeleev discovered the periodic table of elements, there was chemistry, but he revolutionized it. He made it easy to teach, easy to learn, easy to understand. And so his paradigm works. And so he started, I think there were 79 elements at that time. Now there's over 100, it's like 116 or something, 120. Well, because it works, every time we discover a new one, it fits right in because it works. So every science textbook and every science classroom in the world has the periodic table because it works. See, in whatever language they speak. I absolutely guarantee you, when we get to another planet where there are civilized people who have airplanes and rockets and computers and things, they are going to have the periodic table. There's no question about it. They're going to have Newton's three laws of motion. They're going to have the Pythagorean theorem. We have advanced as far as we have because we have those things. So they're going to have them. So right there, you have a way to learn their language. We show them our periodic table, they show them theirs, and we have a correspondence. See, their word for helium is garagini book. So we now know that word. I was compelled to write the book because I knew these were correct, because I saw them in action. And I didn't particularly want to write a book, but I've had a lifetime of helping people, and I could see that this would help people, and it does. That's what I get. Nobody ever says, this doesn't make any sense. They all say, wow, this explains my brother-in-law perfectly.
I'm excited to read the book.
I actually just bought it on Amazon.
I was just going to ask you, where do we find the book? Can you share with our listeners where they can find your book?
Well, as Lynn said, it's on Amazon. It's also Barnes and Noble. This is an easy book to find. If you just type the word Septemics into a search engine, you'll get hundreds of responses, including everybody who's selling the book. You know, Acme Bookstore in Dayton, Ohio. Will come up.
Perfect.
So
Perfect.
if
Do
you're
you
in
have
that
a
area,
website
the
or an email that you
website,
want people to contact you at?
the website is septemics.com.
Perfect.
And my email is on the website if you want to send me a nasty email.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Jim, so much for joining us. This has been such an enlightening conversation. And like Lynn said, she bought the book, and I'm going to as well because I'm really interested in reading it. But thank you so much for joining us and coming on the podcast today. We appreciate it. And like I said, I'm really excited to dig into this a little further and find out more information about myself and about the people around me.
Great.
Thank you so much.
You will like it.
Thanks, Jim.
I just want to say one sentence in closing
Yeah.
to sort of focus all of this. The data in this book are vital for every person. It can help you to achieve your goals faster and easier by explaining what might otherwise seem to be inexplicable or random.
I love that.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jim.
Thank you, ladies.
Bye, Jim.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us on this spirited journey today.
We hope you enjoyed diving into the world of self-improvement with us. Two sisters who found their own unique paths.
Remember, life is a tapestry of experiences, and it's how we embrace them that makes all the difference.
So whether you're on your yoga mat, exploring mindfulness, or simply navigating life's twists and turns, always keep that spirit and sass alive.
We are Colin and Nerdy Locked Up, and we're here to remind you that happiness and abundance are within reach.
Stay connected with us on social media and keep those questions and stories coming. We love hearing from you.
Until next time, beautiful souls, keep doing the work, keep sharing your experiences, and keep living a life that's authentically you.
And never forget to add a little extra sass to your day.
Spirit and sass, always.